Today we are reading chapter 8, which is the battle with Grendel. So up at the top it says the feast ends. They mean the feast with Unferth and Hrothgar. Beowulf and his men take place of Hrothgar's followers and lie down to sleep in Harrowat. Beowulf, however, is wakeful, eager to meet his enemy. Out from the marsh, from the foot of the misty hills and bogs, bearing God's hatred, Grendel came, hoping to kill. Bearing God's hatred. Let's put a little cross. And does God hate? We're going to put that question because that's crazy. Grendel came hoping to kill anyone he could trap on this trip to High Heorot. He moved quickly through the cloudy night, up from his swampland, sliding silently toward that gold-shining hall. He had visited Hrothgar's home before, he knew the way, but never before that night. Let's highlight this. But never before or after that night found Heorot defended so firmly, his reception so harsh. So this is the first time ever that he sees that this place is defended, and that's because Beowulf is here. He journeyed, forever joyless, straight to the door, then snapped it open and tore its iron fastenings with a touch and rushed angrily over the threshold. He strode quickly across the inlaid floor, snarling and fierce. His eyes gleamed in the darkness, burned with a gruesome light. And then he stopped, seeing the hall crowded with sleeping warriors, stuffed with rows of young soldiers resting together. And his heart laughed. He relished in the sight. Can a heart actually laugh? A heart can't laugh. So this is personification. He relished in the sight. He intended to tear the life from those bodies by morning. The monster's mind was hot with the thought of food and the feasting his belly would soon know. But fate that night intended Grendel to gnaw on the bones of his last human supper. This is two things, but fate. So fate, we know that equals word, and we know that is pagan. And then it says, intended Grendel to gnaw on the bones of his last human supper. That is also foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. So foreshadowing that something bad is going to happen, that Grendel is going to have the last human supper, aka he's going to die. Human eyes were watching his evil steps, waiting to see his swift claws. Grendel snatched at the first geat he came to. It says human eyes were watching, so somebody's watching Grendel. But he snatched at the first geat he came to and ripped him apart and cut his body to bits with powerful jaws, drank the blood from his veins and bolted him down, hands and feet. Death in Grendel's great teeth came together, snapping life shut. So the first geat Grendel comes to, even though it says somebody was watching him, he kills this man. He kills a geat. Why put a gat? Kills a geat. Even though somebody was watching him. Right? And then he stepped to another still body, clutched at Beowulf with his claws, grasped at a strong-hearted wakeful sleeper, and instantly he was seized himself, claws bent back as Beowulf leaned up on one arm. So he killed the first one, and then he came over to Beowulf, and Beowulf hopped up on one arm and grabbed Grendel with the other. That shepherd of evil, that guardian of crime, who is this? Who is the shepherd of evil and the guardian of crime? This is Kenning. That shepherd of evil, that guardian of crime. They're talking about Grendel. He knew at once that nowhere on earth had he met a man whose hands were harder. His mind was flooded with fear, but nothing could take his talons from that tight, taut grip. Grendel's scared. For the first time ever, he is scared. Got like 2 more pages. Grendel's one thought was to run from Beowulf and flee back to his marsh and hide there. What Grendel want to do? He want to run. He is so scared. Grendel wants to run. Okay? This was a different Heorot than the hall he had emptied. But Higlac's follower remembered his final boast and, standing erect, stopped the monster's flight, fastened those claws in its fists until they cracked and clutched Grendel closer. So when Grendel tries to run, Beowulf squeezes Grendel's claw until it cracks. So Beowulf squeezes Grendel's claw till it cracks. The infamous killer fought for his freedom. Who is the infamous killer? The infamous killer fought for his freedom. The infamous killer ain't Beowulf, so it's Kenning for Grendel. He wanted no flesh but retreat, desiring nothing but escape. His claws had been caught. He was trapped. Grendel is stuck. That high trip to Heorot was a miserable journey for the writhing monster. The high hall rang, its roof boards swayed, and the Danes shook with terror. Down the aisles, the battle swept. This whole part that I'm about to read is like a mini fight scene. So I'm going to be highlighting a lot, and then we'll put like a little summary over here. Down the aisles, the battle swept, angry and wild. Heorot trembled, and it was wonderfully built to withstand the blows, struggling great bodies beating at its beautiful walls. Shaped and fastened with iron inside and out, artfully worked, the building stood firm. Its benches rattled and fell to the floor, and gold boards grating as Grendel and Beowulf battled across them. Hrothgar's wise men had fashioned Heorot to stand forever. Only fire they had planned could shatter such a skill they had put together, swallow in hot flames and splendor of ivory and iron and wood. So this is like, you know them cartoons that'd be looking like this, and it'd be like a fight scene. It'd be like, pow, boom, and it's like dust and stars everywhere. That's how the fight is. They rolling and tumbling all over. It's just a big, crazy fight. Suddenly, the sounds changed, and the Danes started in new terror, cowering in their beds as the terrible screams of the Almighty's enemy sang in the darkness. The terrible screams of the Almighty's enemy. Who's the Almighty's enemy? Kenning for Grendel. The horrible shrieks of pain and defeat. The tears were torn out of Grendel's taut throat. Hel's captive caught in the arms of him who of all of the men on the earth was the strongest. This is a double Kenning. And Grendel, for our note, he is losing. Grendel is losing. Okay? Hel's captive. So who is Hel's captive? That is Grendel. And then who is caught in the arms of him who of all of the men on earth was the strongest? That is Kenning again. And they're talking about Beowulf. That mighty protector of men. Mighty protector of men. So many Kennings here. This is Beowulf. The mighty protector of men meant to hold the monster till its life leaped out, knowing that fiend was no use to anyone in Denmark. All of Beowulf's bands had jumped from their beds, ancestral swords raised and ready, determined to protect their prince if they could. So the fight's almost over, and now Beowulf's men hopping up like, where y'all been? Now they come to help. Like when the fight's almost over. Their courage was great, but all wasted. They could hack at Grendel from every side, trying to open a path for his evil soul, but their points could not hurt them. The sharpest and hardest iron could not scratch at his skin, for that sin-stained demon had bewitched all man's weapons and laid spells that blunted every mortal man's blade. So this other side says their points could not hurt him. He bewitched men's weapons and laid spells on it that blunted every mortal man's blade. So this is why everybody has been losing to Grendel. No sword can hurt him. He put a spell on swords. But what is Beowulf fighting with? Beowulf said he was using his hands. That's why Grendel is losing. So if Beowulf had taken a sword, he wouldn't be able to fight Grendel, but he's using his hands. And yet his time had come, his days were over, his death was near. Down to hell he would go. If we are reading down to hell, he would go. Is that going to be Christian or pagan? Hell. Put our little Christianity cross. To the waiting hands of still worse fiends. Now he discovered, once the afflictor of men, the tormentor of their days, what it meant to feud with Almighty God. Grendel saw that his strength was deserting him, his claws bound fast. Higlac's brave follower tearing at his hands. Higlac's brave follower. Who is that? It's not Grendel. That is Beowulf. The monster's hatred rose higher, but his power had gone. He twisted in pain, and the bleeding sinews deep in his shoulder snapped. Muscle and bone split and broke. The battle was over. Beowulf had been granted a new glory. So that's it. His shoulder snapped off. So Beowulf ripped Grendel's arm off. And it says that the battle was over. So he won. Yay. Grendel escaped. Oh, okay. Grendel escaped, but wounded as he was, he would flee to his den, his miserable hole at the bottom of the marsh, only to die and to wait for the end of all of his days. So it says that he is going to die. Grendel escapes. To his den to die. And after that bloody combat, the Danes laughed with delight. He who had come to them from across the sea. Who is this? He who had come to them from across the sea. That is definitely Kenning, but who that is? Beowulf, bold and strong-minded, had driven affliction off and purged Heorot clean. He was happy now with that night's fierce work. The Danes had been served as he'd boasted he'd serve them. Beowulf and Prince of the Geats had killed Grendel, ended the grief of the sorrow, the suffering forced on him by Hrothgar's helpless people, a bloodthirsty fiend. No Dane doubted the victory. For the proof hanging high from the rafters where Beowulf had hung it, the monster's arm and claw and shoulder and all. So Beowulf hung up Grendel's arm like a trophy in the mead hall. And then in the morning, crowds surrounded Heorot, warriors coming to that hall from faraway lands, princes and leaders of men hurrying to behold the monster's great staggering tracks. They gaped with no sense of sorrow and felt no regret for his suffering and went tracing his bloody footprints, his beaten and lonely night, to the edge of his lake where he dragged his corpse-like way, doomed and already weary of his vanishing life. The water was bloody and steaming and boiling and horrible pounding waves. Heat sucked from his magic veins, but the swirling surf had covered his death. So people came to see that Grendel was really dead. And it was like boiling, bubbling, bloody water. Boiling, bubbling, bloody water. Last page. Deep in the murky darkness, his miserable end, hell opened to receive Grendel. So we're going to put a cross, and when everything's officially over, hell opens to take Grendel. Then old and young rejoiced and turned back from that happy pilgrimage, mounted their hard-hooved horses. What is that? Hard-hooved horses, high-spirited stallions, and rode them slowly towards Heorot again. This is alliteration. And everybody is retelling Beowulf's bravery, and they jogged along. And over they swore that nowhere on earth, under the spreading sky or between the seas, neither north nor south, was there a warrior worthier to rule over men. But no one meant Beowulf's praise to belittle Hrothgar, their kind and gracious king. We're going to put this as an epic hero trait. Okay? And I need to flip back to see the exact words. It is an epic hero trait, and we are going to call that one living for the glory, extreme loyalty, one of those. Extreme loyalty / living for glory. This is the last little section that is inside of this section, but we're going to read this tomorrow with the battle of the monster's mother. So we're going to save this part for later. Save chapter 10 for later. And we're done.